The announcement came 20 minutes into the ride, and that's when I knew something was wrong. But let me back up. I'd caught the last train to Boston from Penn Station, 11:47 p.m. departure, Platform 7, Christmas Eve. The platform was nearly empty when I got there. Just me, an elderly man in a wool coat reading a newspaper, and a young couple arguing quietly near the far end. Everyone else had already left for the holidays. The station felt hollow. Our footsteps echoed against concrete as we boarded. I found a window seat in the second car and dropped my bag, watching through frosted glass as the platform decorations slid past. Tired garland wrapped around posts, a plastic Santa that had seen better days. The train lurched forward at exactly 11:47. My sister had texted me earlier. "Mom's already freaking out about the turkey. Don't be late." I wouldn't be late. I'd be home by 3 a.m. with hours to spare before the chaos started. Before my nephew tore into presents, before Mom's annual meltdown over the stuffing, before all of it. I settled into my seat, scrolling through my phone, half watching the darkness outside. 20 minutes in, the announcement came through the speakers. Not the usual conductor's voice. This was different. A woman's voice, flat and mechanical like text-to-speech software. "Attention. Someone is coming home for Christmas." I looked up from my phone. That was a weird way to phrase it. Not passengers traveling for the holidays or some generic greeting. Someone is coming home. Specific, singular. I glanced around the car. The elderly man was still reading his newspaper, but his hands had stopped turning pages. Through the window into the next car, I could see the young couple. They'd stopped arguing, both staring up at the speakers. The LED marquee at the front of the car flickered. It should have been displaying the next stop. Stamford, 8 minutes away. Instead, orange letters scrolled past. "She's finally coming home. She's finally coming home. She's finally coming home." My stomach tightened. I pulled out my phone and texted my sister. "Weird announcement on the train. Says someone is coming home for Christmas." "Creepy as hell." She replied immediately. "Probably just some conductor being festive. See you in the morning." I tried to relax. Probably nothing. Just some bored employee messing around. But something about the phrasing felt wrong. Not festive, not warm. She's finally coming home. Finally. Like it had been a long time. Like someone had been waiting. The intercom crackled again. "Please remain in your seats. She'll be here soon." The elderly man looked up from his newspaper. Our eyes met across the aisle. His face had gone pale. He started gathering his things, stuffing the newspaper into his bag with shaking hands. I checked my phone for our location. Stamford in 6 minutes. I'd get off there. Wait in the station. Take the next train. Mom would understand. The train rocked gently as we curved through the darkness. Outside, I could see house lights twinkling. Christmas lights on roofs, inflatable snowmen in yards, windows glowing warm and yellow, families inside, safe, together. The temperature in the car dropped suddenly. I could see my breath. The elderly man pulled his coat tighter, looking around with wide eyes. I watched frost begin to form on the windows, creeping across the glass in patterns that looked almost like fingers. The kind of cold that doesn't come from broken heating, the kind that comes from something else. The lights went out. Complete darkness, except for the orange glow of the marquee. Stay seated. Stay seated. Stay seated. I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating empty seats, the aisle. Something was standing at the far end of the car. I couldn't make out details, just a silhouette in a long dress, perfectly still, facing us. The elderly man saw it too. I heard his sharp intake of breath, saw him rise from his seat in my peripheral vision. The figure didn't move, didn't sway with the motion of the train, just stood there, impossibly still, in the darkness. I aimed my phone light directly at it. The beam passed right through, like it wasn't really there, like it was made of smoke. That's when I knew we were in real trouble. The elderly man was already moving toward the vestibule door, shuffling quickly down the aisle. I grabbed my bag and followed, keeping my light trained on the figure. It still hadn't moved. We made it to the vestibule between cars. The metal floor shook beneath us, the sound of wheels on tracks suddenly loud in the small space. Through the window, I could see the young couple in the next car, pressed against their seats, staring at something I couldn't see. The elderly man slammed his hand on the door button. Nothing happened. He hit it again, and again. The green light that should have indicated the door was unlocked stayed dark. I tried the door behind us, back into our car, also locked. We were trapped in the vestibule. The intercom clicked on, the sound echoing in the small space. The last time she came home for Christmas, they wouldn't let her in. They said she wasn't welcome anymore. They said she'd ruined everything. So she left. And she waited. 23 years. She waited. Now she's coming home. And this time, she's bringing guests. The elderly man was staring past me through the vestibule window into our car. His face had gone completely white. I turned. The figure was closer now, much closer, standing right on the other side of the glass, inches away. I still couldn't see its face. The darkness was too thick, but I could see the dress more clearly now, white, or what used to be white, stained dark in places, old-fashioned, like something from decades ago. The fabric hung wrong, clinging to the figure in wet patches, and I could smell something even through the door, copper and old flowers. Sweet and metallic at the same time, like a funeral home and a butcher shop had somehow merged. The elderly man grabbed my arm. His fingers dug in hard enough to bruise. He leaned close, his voice barely a whisper. "Don't look at its face." My grandmother told me stories. If something like this appears, don't look at its face. Don't acknowledge it. It feeds on recognition. We pressed ourselves against the opposite door, backs to the glass. The figure stood motionless on the other side of the vestibule window. I checked my phone. No signal. We were in a dead zone between stations. The train should have reached Stamford by now, but through the vestibule windows I could see only darkness outside. No lights, no buildings, no station platform, nothing, just endless black. The figure took a step forward. The sound was wrong, not the click of a heel or the soft pad of a shoe. It was wet, a squelching sound, like stepping in something thick and liquid. Another step. Squelch. The vestibule door between us shouldn't have been able to open while the train was moving. Safety mechanism, but I watched the handle turn anyway. Another step. Squelch. I could hear breathing now, raspy, labored, like air being pulled through a damaged throat, like someone who'd been underwater too long. The elderly man's whisper was frantic. "Close your eyes. Don't look at its face. Don't look, don't look, don't look." I squeezed my eyes shut. My phone slipped from my trembling hands and clattered to the metal floor, the light spinning, casting wild shadows across my closed eyelids. The footsteps stopped. I could feel it right in front of us, could feel the cold radiating from it, seeping through my clothes, into my skin, into my bones. Could smell that copper flower smell, overwhelming now, making me gag. My throat closed up. I couldn't swallow. Something touched my face, fingers, cold and wet,
not just cold like ice. Cold like something that had never been warm. Cold like the bottom of a lake in winter. They traced along my jaw, my cheek, my forehead. Slow, deliberate, like memorizing me, like a blind person reading Braille. I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood, trying not to scream, trying not to open my eyes, trying not to acknowledge what was touching me. The fingers moved to my eyelids, pressing gently, testing, as if checking to make sure they were closed, as if making sure I was following the rules. The pressure increased slightly, not painful, just insistent. A reminder. Good. The voice came from inches away, not from the intercom, right in front of me. A woman's voice, but wrong, layered, like multiple voices speaking at once, slightly out of sync, like a recording played over itself again and again. You're learning. The pressure on my eyelids released. The cold receded slowly, like water draining. When I finally opened my eyes, after counting to 30, after hearing nothing but the train's wheels for a full minute, it was gone. The lights flickered back on. The elderly man was crying silently, tears streaming down his face. There were wet marks on his cheeks, handprints in something dark and rust-colored. He stared at his reflection in the vestibule window, touching the marks with shaking fingers. The door behind us shuddered open. But when we stepped through into the next car, something was very wrong.
The young couple was gone. Their bags were still there, coats draped over seats, a purse sitting open with a wallet visible inside. But no sign of them, like they'd simply evaporated. The elderly man was already moving toward the next door, toward the front of the train. I followed, looking back over my shoulder every few steps. We passed through the third car, empty. Fourth car, also empty. Someone's coffee sat on a tray table, still steaming. Fifth car, a child's stuffed animal lay in the aisle. A pink rabbit, one ear torn. How many passengers had been on this train? 20, 30. All gone now, all their belongings left behind like evidence at a crime scene. Finally, we reached the first car, the one right behind the locomotive. A woman sat in the front seat. She was wearing a white dress, stained and dirty. Long dark hair hung down her back. Reaching past the seat, she was facing forward, looking at the door to the locomotive. We froze in the doorway. The elderly man grabbed my arm again, pulling me back, but it was too late. Her head began to turn, slowly. I could see her profile emerging from behind the curtain of hair. Pale skin, gray-white like something drained, hollow cheek. The corner of a mouth too wide, stretching back farther than it should. "Don't look at her face," the elderly man hissed. I squeezed my eyes shut just as she completed the turn. "You can't hide from me." That layered voice, multiple voices speaking as one. I've been riding this train for 23 years. I know every passenger, every seat, every soul that boards at Penn Station on Christmas Eve. Footsteps approached, that wet, squelching sound, closer and closer. But you're not who I want. You're just company, for the ride, for the waiting. The footsteps passed us. I heard the door to the locomotive open. The sound of wind rushed in, cold and sharp. "Daddy," the voice said, and for just a moment it sounded almost human, almost sad, young, vulnerable. "I'm home." The train lurched violently. The brakes screamed, metal on metal, a sound that went through my skull like a drill. We were thrown forward, slamming into seats. My shoulder hit an armrest. The elderly man crashed into the aisle. And then everything stopped. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. No engine rumble, no wheel sounds, nothing. I opened my eyes. The lights were on, normal fluorescent lights, bright and steady. The elderly man was picking himself up off the floor, checking his arms, his legs, his ribs. Through the windows, I could see a platform, a station, but not Stamford. The sign read, Greenwich, 1987. I stared at it. Read it again. The numbers didn't change. My phone said it was 2024. December 25th, 2024. 3:17 a.m. But the station sign said 1987. The elderly man was staring out the window, his face slack with horror. On the platform, I could see people, but they were dressed wrong. Styles from the 80s, big hair, shoulder pads, acid-washed jeans, old-fashioned luggage, a woman in leg warmers, a man with a mullet. And standing in the middle of the platform was a family, a man in his 50s, graying hair, wearing a heavy winter coat, a woman about the same age, her hair permed, her face hard, 2 teenage children, a boy and a girl, both looking uncomfortable, looking anywhere but at the train. They were all staring at the locomotive. The door opened. A young woman stepped out onto the platform. She was wearing a white dress, clean now, new, the fabric crisp and bright. Her dark hair was styled, curled and pinned back. Her makeup was perfect. She looked about 20 years old, pretty, nervous, hopeful. She was carrying a small suitcase. She walked toward the family, her heels clicking on the concrete, each step careful, hesitant. The man, her father, stepped back, shaking his head. The young woman stopped about 10 feet away. She set down her suitcase. Her mouth moved. I couldn't hear through the train windows, but I could read her body language. Pleading, apologizing. The father's face was hard, angry. He was shaking his head over and over. His mouth moved, sharp words, cutting words. The mother stood with her arms crossed, cold, unmoved. The teenage siblings looked away, embarrassed, uncomfortable. The young woman's face crumpled. She reached out toward them, took a step forward. The father held up his hand. Stop, no closer, more words, harsh words, final words. The young woman stood there, her hands still outstretched, as her family turned and walked away, all 4 of them. Together, a complete unit, leaving her alone on the platform. She watched them go, watched them disappear into the station, watched them leave her behind. She stood there for a long moment, just standing, alone, on Christmas morning in 1987. Then she turned back toward the train, toward us. Her face was changing, skin paling, going from healthy pink to gray-white, eyes darkening, the whites turning yellow, then black. That sweet, sad expression twisting, mouth stretching wider, too wide, splitting at the corners. She stepped back onto the train. The doors slammed shut behind her. The train lurched forward. Through the windows, I watched the platform disappear, watched the station fade, watched the years 1987 dissolve back into darkness. When light returned, we were moving again through normal darkness. Regular night. The marquee at the front of the car read, "Now approaching Stamford." "We're moving again," I whispered. The elderly man didn't respond. He was staring at his hands. They were translucent. I could see through them to the seat behind, see the fabric pattern through his skin. He opened his mouth. No sound came out. He tried again. Nothing. He was fading. I looked down at my own hands. Still solid, but cold. So cold. "No," I said. "No, this isn't. We're getting off at Stamford. We're getting off and we're calling the police." And the elderly man shook his head slowly. He pointed at the window. Outside, I could see the Stamford platform approaching, could see people waiting there. A few late-night travelers, a security guard, all of them solid. Real. Alive. The train began to slow. Come on, I grabbed the elderly man's arm, or tried to. My hand passed partway through, but I could still feel something, still pull him toward the door. The train stopped. The doors opened. I stepped onto the platform. The elderly man tried to follow. He made it halfway through the door before something yanked him back. Hard, like a chain had gone taut. I saw his mouth open in a silent scream as he was dragged backward into the train. His translucent hands clawed at the door frame, leaving no marks. And then he was gone, pulled into the darkness of the car. The doors started to close. I lunged forward, jamming my arm between them. They bounced open again. "Hey!" A security guard was walking toward me. "Train's leaving. You getting back on or what?" I looked into the dark car, could see shapes moving in there. Translucent figures, dozens of them, all staring at me, and in the very back, that woman in the white dress. Watching, waiting. I pulled my arm back, let the doors close. The train pulled away. I stood on the platform, shaking, watching it disappear into the tunnel, watching the red taillights fade. The security guard stopped next to me. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I almost laughed. "Almost." "Yeah," I managed. "I'm okay. I just need to call someone." I pulled out my phone. My hands were still cold, but they were solid, real. The screen showed 3:47 a.m., December 25th, 2024. I called my sister. She answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "I'm in Stamford. I'm going to catch the next train. I'll be there by 5. "Jesus, you scared me." "What happened?" I looked back at the tunnel where the train had disappeared. "Nothing," I said. I'll tell you when I get there. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, weirdo. See you soon." I hung up. The next train arrived 20 minutes later. I boarded carefully, checking every car before choosing one near the middle. Lots of passengers, families, normal people going home for Christmas. The conductor came through, checking tickets, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a Boston accent. "Merry Christmas," he said. "Merry Christmas," I replied. I made it to Boston at 5:23 a.m. My sister picked me up at South Station. Mom's house was warm and bright and full of the smell of coffee and cinnamon rolls. My nephew tackled me the moment I walked in, demanding to know if Santa had come yet. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that train, about the elderly man and the young couple, and all those translucent figures. About the woman in the white dress, riding back and forth, forever traveling toward a moment that ended 37 years ago. And I wonder how many people board that last train on Christmas Eve. How many people don't make it home? I never take the last train anymore. I don't care how late I'm running. I don't care if it means missing Christmas morning, because I know what's waiting on Platform 7 at 11:47 p.m. And I know that some people who board that train are still riding it, still going home, still trying to arrive. The other day, I was scrolling through a true crime forum, one of those places where people post unsolved mysteries and strange disappearances. There was a thread about people who vanished from Amtrak trains, passengers who boarded but never arrived, tickets scanned but no one getting off at their destination. The list was longer than I expected. Most of them disappeared on Christmas Eve. Most of them were on the last train to Boston. I don't post about what I saw. I don't tell people the real story. They wouldn't believe me anyway. But every Christmas Eve, I check that forum, and every year, there's a new name added to the list. Someone who boarded at Penn Station, someone who never arrived, someone who's still riding that train, going home, finally.